Hello there everybody. Thank you again for checking out my channel, and today I am decorating this part of my condo in my favorite game at the moment, Tower Unite. It's a game I've played for a while and I think it needs more recognition out there, and so I'm showing off a build I did. For this area I am taking care of a living room area, which will also become a kitchen at some point and a dining room. To start off with, I decided to deal with this little empty area right here that I figured would be a nice living room area, a nice little area to settle down in. Although I'm not great at building all of these buildings yet, and I am still a beginner to this at all, I think for interior decoration a good starting point is just to set down a couch, because everybody needs a couch to sit in, and everybody needs just somewhere to relax. And so if you're talking about a living room, you're going to need a couch. From there you can build things around it, such as coffee tables, or end dressers, or in this case you're going to see in a moment, even a fish tank. And those are useful starting points, and from there you can continue to build out that image of whatever comes to mind. For most of these builds, I kind of just wing it. I mean, you can look at other builds and try to plan out exactly what you want to build as you go on, but I think the best results happen whenever you're working on the fly and whenever you are just letting creativity take a hold. One of the things I struggle most with in this game is the colors. You know, sometimes you can get some pretty color combinations right off the bat, but as you'll see here, the original color scheme I started off with is just not great. I didn't really know what I was going to go with, and so I thought for a moment maybe I'd do a fall style color set with orange and red being the main colors, and even a little bit of yellow, but as the build continues you'll notice a sudden shift in these colors whenever I determine what color scheme I actually end up using for the rest of the build, and I much prefer that color scheme. As I'm going through and editing this, I realize just how much I'm saying the word so if you really want to die by alcohol poisoning, take a shot every time I say because I just did it again. Here you can see I'm starting to set up a area for a painting. So in this game you can use a canvas to get a picture, any picture, as long as you have the link for the image. But the picture frame it comes with just isn't really all that great, in my opinion. Once you stretch it, it gets too big, or if you squish it down, it looks weird. And so I prefer to set up these custom frames of my own, where I use canvas cubes in order to outline, and then I'll put another canvas cube of glass on top of it to give it a sort of display style look to it. So in this instance, whenever I'm making it into a poster, in order to make it flat, whenever things get small in this game, anywhere from 0.01 in any scale, the physics behind working with it become really strange. And so if you try to stretch it, it will just completely bug out the entire system, and you'll be left with basically an unusable object. Here you can see I'm adding this glass. So in this game there are a few textures that have tracing. I think it's ray tracing, I don't know. But they have reflections, and this one has a unique look to it, where it will sort of distort and bend the edges, but also creates a nice glass texture compared to the other ones, which I think are a little ugly. Now I don't know how many people out there play Animal Crossing New Horizons for the creative aspect of just building like a pretty house or something in it, but this build is inspired by one of my favorite items that you can use to build with in Animal Crossing New Horizons, and that's the tension pole rack. So trying to make this was a pain. You can see why, because I had to make several poles and decorate it. There was just a lot of parts in it that I had to make, and that's just kind of a common thing in Tower Unite. You can get workshop items that will make things look prettier, but they don't always have what you're looking for, and so for this instance I was looking really just for a tension pole rack. But of course it's a kind of niche item, and there wasn't a workshop model for it, so I had to go out and create it by hand. And I figured this would be a very pretty looking build if I could get it finished. And even though it took me, roughly an hour to get this tension pole rack set up, I don't regret it at all, because it really draws the build together, and I really enjoy it. And that's just one of the powers of, like, if you're new to Tower Unite and you're trying to build, using canvas cubes and canvas spheres, whatever, tubes, cylinders, whatever you have, you can make some really nice objects in it that you can't really make otherwise if you just put in the time for it. And so while it might be a little bit more difficult to make, I think it's always worth that extra effort, because it can really just tie a build all together if you're really missing out on it. Trying to mess around with moving the objects is always a bit of a pain, because you can only, as you might see, you can't like pan your camera around to get good views. You have to physically move your character or no clip around, which is easier than moving. But you still can only get so precise just by looking around. And so, even though I don't do it very often, it's very helpful to have the exact coordinates of things that you can just mess around with. And so that's how I get these little triangles that represent like little holders where it will be platforms. To get them perfectly level with each other would have been a pain to do by hand, so I just do it using the coordinate system and just copying and pasting it over. While I'm building this, if you've never played Tower Unite before, and you're wondering what the hell is going on here, Tower Unite is if you've ever played Gmod Tower, it's by the same people who made that, and basically what you do is you play mini-games to earn money, and you use that money to buy upgrades in mini-games, buy like cosmetics, buy props for your house that you can build with. And so this condo that I'm building in is called the Highrise condo, even though you might not be able to see it's a high-rise, because I've turned it into a stormy, like, ocean rise, essentially. But, so you use that money just to keep buying things, and it's a really fun game if you ever get a chance. I have over 200-something hours on this now, and this is the third house I've decorated. The first one was smaller, the second one I kind of gave up through because it was way too big, and this one is probably the first larger map that I'll ever fully finish. I'm planning on doing more of these for future videos. But yeah, so you can see just the basics of this game. If this is your first time ever watching decorating a condo, or even looking at the condo decorating screen, you don't expect to be making builds like these right off the bat. Get to know your systems first, get to know stretching, get to know movement, just stuff like that, and then worry about buying stuff and decorating your condo to the full level of decoration. Because whenever I first started off, I literally just started off by decorating the basic condo that you got, and just making a kitchen for a few hours, and that was the highlight of my day. And even though no one ever saw it, it was still just a fun build to make, and I can't stress how much fun it is to just decorate something for yourself and be proud in what you make. And even though this video is slightly less than an hour, don't be deceived, it takes time. All the raw footage alone, even with all the footage that gets corrupted or I forgot to record, it was roughly over 10 hours. So I've condensed a lot of this video down, and so if you're struggling, like, this build is taking me several days to make, don't worry about it. It takes time. Rome wasn't built in a day, and it sure as hell wasn't built in 2 days. Slowly but surely, we're starting to make our way to the end of this, what is it called? Tension pole rack build. The name always escapes me. I literally had to go out and play Animal Crossing to remember what this was even called, because I couldn't find it online. But as we come to the closer end of it, you can see I'm decorating it. I'm making a little small bonsai tree using a sake cup and some canvas cubes. And I'll quickly cut to a fully decorated version of this, where I have finalized everything, because I don't want to bore you with the details, but you can see I have little models of Seattle Space Needle, the Eiffel Tower. I even have a Figley from the Stanley Parable Part 2. And just throwing in a candle to any build always just makes it look that much better. I'm not sure why. But quickly we're going to move on to decorating this area over here, which should divide this little living room area from the hallway. And currently it just feels too empty for my liking, so I decided to make a shelving unit of sorts. And I'll go through several iterations of this, but this same shape stays most of the time. the main meat of this build, though, is going to be these hexagon cubes, or hexagon cubes, that's not right. These hexagon shelving units, I think they're called honeycomb in this version, but I always type in hexagon and I never find it, so I have to type in honeycomb. But these little shelving units I plan on originally using to fill in the space, just by alternating up and down until there was no more space, and then using a few smaller ones. But I actually end up scrapping this version of it, even though I do end up using these hexagons in the final build, because it just doesn't look all that good. There are things that like I'll think of and I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds great. Why doesn't everyone do this? And then I'll try to make them in here, and they just don't look great. And so I just end up scrapping them, or changing them, or just, you know, modifying them to fit whatever idea I think works best. And so you can see, like, it's an idea, but whenever I fully finish it, I just don't like it. And so I'll end up changing this, and if you don't like it, don't worry, I didn't either. And if you do like it, you know, no harm to you, just go for it. You might have just noticed my character having a heart attack there for a second and collapsing on the floor. That was me just resetting my character, because sometimes whenever you're messing around with moving objects, your camera will lock up, and you won't be able to look left or right, which is super annoying, and I really wish there was some other way to fix it other than resetting your character. But, you know, before I figured out you could just reset your character to get rid of it, I used to have to completely leave the build and come back in, so I guess this is still a better alternative to that. So you can see, again, this is what I was talking about with the colors. I use colors, I don't think they're great at this moment, and they do get fixed later, but for now I think these colors are an interesting choice at best that I chose. But I knew I wanted to have these divided in some way, and so originally I was going to use the marble wall you saw there, but I decided that these Japanese shoji were a better pick for this divider, because although you can't really see most of it, this build has a lot of Japanese influence in most of the areas, and in the lobby where you spawn in, I even have pretty much everything in there is based off traditional Japanese colors or has Japanese art. And you might even notice that the artwork I picked up and put on the wall was a Japanese-inspired snowy, like, fantasy city. And so I ended up deciding that even though my original idea was to have these dividers dividing the honeycomb cubes, there we go again, honeycomb cubes, I decided to move them back because I didn't like how it looked divided. And then there was just this empty space up here where I, again, felt it just really shouldn't be empty. And so I went with a sort of hanging shelf. It's not fully hanging, and you'll see in a moment that I make it where it hangs on the left end, and on the right end it's supported by the soji wall on the right. So I think it ends up looking pretty nice by the end, but it took a minute to get there. And with these colors, it gets better. I swear, I promise. The final result looks even better than what you see right now, if you're already liking what I've done. And I used this, like, brick to create, like, a rusted metal pipe looking kind of rod, because they don't actually have a rusted metal texture. All they have is, like, sheet metal and chrome, and that's not really what I was going for. So I went with these little, like, rusted pipe kind of looking rods. Unfortunately, you'll see in a moment, while I was making this, my Tower Unite actually crashed midway through, and so it's like, I think once I start decorating this build, I get about 2 items in, and then it crashes. And so, luckily it saves this pipe that I'm making, but it didn't save any of the decorations I had made beforehand, so you'll see just kind of like a sudden jump, where I jump from no decorations to decorated. And I'm sorry about that. There's going to be a few times where that happens, because either Tower Unite crashed, OBS didn't work, or the footage got corrupted, which is unfortunate to say the least. But yeah, see here. Fully decorated. I hope you didn't want to see the decorating process, because you didn't get to see it, but this is what you get. So this is what it looks like in the sort of final version, but there's still going to be changes coming up to it, and the first of these is to decorate these honeycomb shelving units, not cubes. They're not cubes. A safe bet to decorate with is bottles. They're just always kind of there. They work as good general decoration. They can be used for other things, like if you want to get adventurous and put a canvas cylinder inside of one of them and give it like an image of coffee beans to make it like a jar of coffee beans, or you can just make it pure white and be like, this is a bottle of milk. It's really just up to you. One of the issues with Tower Unite is that you just kind of have to sometimes like wing it and be like, you're gonna have to take my word for it, because sometimes like your final build doesn't always look how you imagined it, and so it's completely cut from this version of the video. But originally I had tried to make a coffee bean jar, but the top of the cylinder looked weird, and I tried to make it look right, and it just didn't end up working, so I just completely cut it from the video. About 15 minutes just completely erased from time. Watching the build back, there is a way I think I could have done it using a canvas pile, which is something I didn't even know existed until halfway through this build, but I didn't use it, and so this is what you ended up with. And so you can see I'm using another workshop prop to make things look pretty. There was a whole set of Sims items that was uploaded to the Tower Unite workshop, and I'm really glad they did it because they fit really well into the Tower Unite setting, and they look wonderful for the most part. Some of them are pretty glitchy, but I ended up using a lot of those in these builds. And actually, as I'm recording this, more of these items just dropped on the workshop, and some of these actually look really cool, and I probably will use in upcoming builds. They got some new stuff like carpets and stones, and even just like a sink that looks nice, and new seating, and yeah, I really like having that extra variety to choose from, because it just helps every build feel unique and differentiated from one another. Just using new colors, new furniture, even new styles can really help make a build feel alive, because not everything is uniform, and not everything you build is going to be the same. And me personally, I believe that, you know, if you just make everything unique, then everything feels special, everything feels creative. You have a different way to express yourself, because this room doesn't use the same colors as the other rooms do, it doesn't have the same feel as the other rooms do. It's unique in its own way, and I really think that whenever anyone builds something in either Minecraft or Roblox, with Legos, with anything, they have that ability to express themselves, and doing so creatively is always going to be more fulfilling than following the same template that you use for everything else. Anyway, tangent about creativity aside, we're moving on to building the dining room, but unfortunately a lot of this footage got lost. So you're going to see I used two workshops items from that Sims set I was talking to you about, this wooden table and this unique looking chair, but unfortunately that's pretty much all you're going to get to see. Alright, and with a jump like that, let me explain what's going on here. So you can probably see that magic table I mentioned right there, and you can see I'm modifying a carpet with some sort of image on it. If you can't tell, that is supposed to be a tarot card, and that's actually the Wheel of Fortune that I've sort of redesigned in my own way. And I make another one right here to turn into like the back of a tarot card, and unfortunately you can't look under the table to see what it is, because I said so. And so you have two tarot cards and a tarot card holder, a box for it essentially. And then to complete this little magic table, I decided a crystal ball would be nice. And so I get a nice crystal ball model from the workshop, and then place one of those canvas spheres over it, and use the frosted glass material in order to make it look more shiny and more reflective. Alright, and so that really marks the first of 3 big milestones in this whole project. And this left area is really simple to just finish off here, because I add a few more little decorations to use. The first of these being a Ouija board. So you might have already seen, but with tarot cards, crystal balls, and now a Ouija board, I have a bit of an obsession with the occult, and I like the idea of like strange magic. And so I learned tarot reading, and I want to get a Ouija board for my own personal use. I don't actually believe that the Ouija board is like actually talking to ghosts, but I do believe that like it's a fun experience to play with, and that, you know, tarot reading and Ouija boards are just a different form of show magic. Except instead of using it to like fool, you're using it to either like give hope or to just entertain somebody for a small period of time. After moving the planchette to say goodbye, I noticed that the bottom half of this table has a weird lighting glitch that I mentioned in the small little period where I said I lost footage. And so I just placed another canvas cube with a wood texture over it to make sure that that lighting glitch is solved, because it only really seems to affect the wood. After, I start using canvas cubes to make board game boxes, and the first one I make is for a game that I personally own called Portal, the Uncooperative Cake Acquisition Game. It's not the most fun game, I'm not going to lie, but it was a good time anyway. And the second one is Stardew Valley the board game, and this one takes a little bit more work to get going. I want to own Stardew Valley the board game, but it's been very hard to get it, because it seems to always be out of stock whenever I'm looking for it. But I got the Portal game 1 year for Christmas, and it actually came with Portal 2 on Steam for free. So if you don't actually own Portal 2, it's just as expensive to buy the board game, and you get Portal 2 with it, and it's just a nice pickup to have. It could very well be that I just haven't played the game enough to understand its rule sets very well, or like the intricate mechanics behind it, but there's just so much going on in it. Honestly, it is, while it's fun for a period of time, it's very hard to know if you're going to win or lose, because I found that the person who wins the game is almost always randomly determined. So yeah, keep that in mind. No, it's not a glowing review, I know, but if you don't own Portal 2, I'd say it's a perfectly fine pickup, because it's only going to cost you like $3 or $4 extra bucks in order to get it. Alright, so here, while the condo comes with these giant glass windows on the edges of the room, I personally think that having some sort of barrier between them and the floor just looks a little bit nicer, and it allows me to just make a more complete feel for the room, because you really can't put anything up against the window without it feeling a little bit out of place. So I create this little counter, for lack of a better word, and I go through a few iterations on the colors, but I eventually just end up copying the already existing counter I have inside for its color schemes, and so I just create this small little border on the edge between the window and the floor, and I think by the end it looks very nice. But yeah, feel free to give your thoughts on this whole build so far in the comments. You can make it as specific as you want. You can be like, at this timestamp, this piece of wood looks out of place, or you can just say like, hey, I love the build, keep it up. I appreciate all those kind of comments. So yeah, there's a little overview of what we've made so far, and personally, I think this looks really good. I was super happy whenever I finished that part, and the next part I decided to work on was the center of the room, because in these big areas, I always struggle to detail the center. I never know what to put there. And so what I did is I went into the workshop for Tower Unite, and I searched through different high-rise condos that had been fully decorated. And so what I saw in one of them was that they had this giant flower bed with cherry blossom trees in the center of them. And I thought that was a really good idea. And obviously I didn't use cherry blossom trees, but I used maple trees in my build. Because you might have noticed it, we have finally landed on our final color scheme, which is this like tealish blue, yellow, and red. And so to complement the colors, I go with big red trees. And so even though I don't color the two trees on the left and right, they will become red by the end, I promise. You'll see them soon enough to be red. And so this little planter is a good use of the middle, because I couldn't really think of anything else I was supposed to do with it. If you guys have any other ideas of what you could have done here, I would have loved to hear them, because there are a few maps like this where they have big open areas and big centers that I still don't know what I'm supposed to do with them quite yet. I didn't have a lot of natural props in my inventory, unfortunately, while I was doing this build, so there were probably a few more trees or flowers that I could have picked out from the Tower Unite stores, but I was running very low on money throughout this project, and I was just trying to buy as little as possible. You might see my income there and be like, wow, that's a lot of money you have for this, but that's about the third time I had to go out and play mini games and get stuff, so that way I could keep buying canvas cubes and workshop props, especially workshop props, because those things are expensive. Those things are like 1,700 each, and those add up fast, especially when you're doing small things like a rug or a cup. I decided to add a little black border around the edges of the planter, just to give it a nice contrast and a good feel with it, because without the border it just didn't feel right, it looked wrong. But overall, with it fully completed, I moved on to coloring the trees and making them look neat, added a bit of lighting, and then I moved straight into building a little small continuation to the living area, so that way it doesn't feel completely separated from the middle of the room, because I wanted this whole room to flow together and I didn't want it to feel completely unnatural and separated from one another. And so you can see that blue color I was talking about. I think this is a really pretty color of blue. It's like a bluish teal green color. And personally, I wish I had used it in other parts of this build, because it's just such like a nice color. But I tried to balance it between the reds, the yellows, and the blues in this. Although probably in future builds I will use different colors. Now, there was something weird with this ottoman prop, where the legs of it were sometimes blue and sometimes wood. And so I went ahead and just summoned in this hallway seat from The Sims that was also uploaded to the workshop. So thank you to the person who's been doing that. I really appreciate it. And so I went ahead and just slapped these ottomans on top of it to create a blue chair of sorts. Although this is really more of like a footrest or like a table. I'm not really sure what you would call it, but I have seen these before, I just don't know the names of them. If you know the name, please comment in the comment section down below. I'm sure I'll get one person in this video who maybe knows that. So yeah, I just continue with the color scheme by mix and matching the pillows to make sure that they have all the colors, including the red and then the yellow, which we'll see here in a second. But the build really isn't fully complete until there's something on each side of the couch, because it just didn't feel right to just be sitting there in the middle of nothing. And so I added these little, they're called TV stands, but I'm thinking of them more as like a nightstand of sorts, or even like a side table. And so these side TV stands, for lack of a better word, I resize them to be the perfect size, recolor them, and then I start decorating on top of them, just with some general stuff that like maybe somebody had left a soda can, and a little bit of money here. And then I'd add one plushie on each side just for a little bit of symmetry. I think it's just nice to have like one of each on every side. And for this photo I ended up choosing somebody who used to be on my old Discord profile picture. And it's a Danganronpa character. If you know them, you know them. If you don't, you're probably better off not knowing the Danganronpa series. Here I went ahead and changed the floor to wood and started adding these rugs along the floor, because the carpet just didn't really work for me. And even though it looks wrong without all these carpets over it, I think once you add these carpets on, this area looks proper. You might notice that I don't add a rug to the area with the old couch that I had set up, but I don't know if I show it in here because I don't remember seeing it when I was editing this video, but we add a little border to create a small little area for it, and overall it looks better than it did before. Alright, so now we finally made it to the right side of this room. And the idea for this side is I'm going to turn it into a kitchen of sorts. Although this is going to be more like a restaurant style like bar. Because as much fun as doing a normal kitchen would have been, I like the idea of just making a restaurant style seating and a big kitchen with like a big TV and paintings and just making it look more, I don't know, more aesthetically pleasing. I don't even know if that's the right word to use for that, but it made sense to me, even if it might not make total sense for this home to have it. But that's the thing, I don't think that I'm going to call this a home. I think I'm going to treat this as like the last refuge in a world washed away by the sea. Because as you can see, this is like or you might even be able to see it, but this is a high-rise that I've taken a canvas cube and put water over it, and then made it stormy. And so now, instead of there being a giant city below, this is a single little tiny island out in the middle of a vast sea. And so I like the little implication that this is maybe like the last base for a group of survivors or something. And so having this nice big kitchen might make people feel more at home or more at ease, and might just get like a common place for people to meet up to eat. So yeah, I started off by, placing some ovens, and then obviously every kitchen needs a sink. Something interesting about this is that there is no pipes on these sinks, and there's no pipe props, although it looks like in the upcoming update that there might be pipe props added. And I think that's mostly for physics items, but it's still a neat addition anyway. But yeah, so there's no drainage or plumbing on these that you can see, at least. So you're just gonna have to imagine that it's there, and I really didn't feel like making custom pipes. I do a lot of custom stuff on these projects, just not custom pipes. Although who knows, maybe sometime in the future I'll come back and do that. For those of you, again, who haven't played Tower Unite, if you're wondering what kind of games there are in this, the most popular game in this one is mini golf. There are a bunch of different courses, including more realistic looking mini golf courses to straight up fancy ones like Kingdoms and Castles and Candyland for one of them. One where you fight a dragon that should really be played more. There's almost never a server running for it. There's even a knockoff version of Mario Kart that's pretty fun to play, but professional players figured out a weird trick with drifting that causes them just to have basically infinite speed, and honestly I can't play it with people who are pretty high rank. There's a zombie infection mode, and there's a zombie survival mode. There is just so many like unique little games too hidden within like the plaza. There's bowling, there's billiards, there's an entire arcade. There's even an entire functioning casino that's set to get some new attractions pretty soon, including bingo and horse betting. Although I'm more interested in playing poker with my friends, because poker is just a fun game to play. Although I don't have enough money to get into the high roller tables, although maybe I should be playing high roller tables, because as I can make a lot of money, I can also just lose all that money pretty fast too. It's just an insane game to play. So if you're ever looking for a quick way to pass the time, this is just a great game to play. Oh, I totally forgot to mention that they have a fishing system in this game that is surprisingly fun to play. I mean, some fishing in some games is terrible, or sometimes you have games like this, or Stardew Valley, which have really fun fishing mechanics. And this one has some really unique items that you can get from fishing, as well as some unique fish, but some of the rare fish are questionable at best. I fished up a piece of rare trash today, and that was literally just a plastic straw, so I don't know about that. I will also say that there are some pretty large communities in this game, and while some of them are like furries, who are very kind and caring and nice, there are some pretty large communities of neo-Nazis in here too, so you have to be careful with who you join, who you follow, and if you get somebody who's annoying or purposely being a dick, just really block them, and you can report them. I don't know how fast the mods are in here, because I've never had to report anyone. I've only ever just muted players and blocked them, so keep that in mind. Anyway, Tower Unite review over. Let's get back to the build. Here I am making a back counter that has some cabinets, and there's really no way to get like opening cabinet doors, and if somehow the developers are watching this, hi, thank you for watching my video. You should add more doors that you can open for other things other than actual doorways, like cabinet doors, or even maybe like a dresser door. I don't know how that would work. I would just say maybe keep that in mind. But I ended up using these glass doors and resizing them to make neat looking cabinet doors. So yeah, I ended up adding a cutting board here, and I'll add a few other things. But this is another case where I lost some more footage. And so we're going to go from having a few details to being fully detailed in just a moment. But there's only so much I can do about that. One of the weirdly coolest things that they have in this game are just some of like these items that have reflections on them. And so I love using like that wooden texture that reflects, and I love how the knife on this one, the cleaver, it has such a nice shine, and it works with literally anything inside the map. Hi there, welcome back. So after I lost some of that filming material, you might have noticed that I decorated some of the pieces of this, and I added a fridge, and like cups, and even the cabinets have stuff in them. And I ended up adding a picture here of a kite over a Japanese mountain, and I don't remember the name of it at this moment, but it's a very pretty painting that I felt deserved a spot on this kitchen front, I guess I'll call it. And I add a little bit of a glow to it to make it stand out, but whenever you walk away, it doesn't look right, so in a moment I'll remove that glow and make it normal. And so, yeah. And then here I ended up adding more of these honeycomb shelves. They're not cubes. I finally got that down. And I ended up recoloring them to fit the three colors that we've been going with for this build, and they look really nice here. And so then I started just decorating stuff at the stovetops that just need decoration and haven't got it yet. And I even tried adding water to one of these pots, and I originally was going to do like a soup or something, but it just never ended up looking right. And so you can see at 700 times speed, me going through different spots and trying to figure out what I'm going to do with it. So yeah. I ended up just sticking with the water because it looked the best. I tried to see if I could color it, and I can't, which is unfortunate. That's one of the complaints I have with Tower Unite, is that the textures need more colorable versions, and we just need more versions of props. And so you can see here I'm adding empty beer mugs to my stuff, but in order to actually do that, I have to physically drink all the beer and then reset my character to lose the drunken effect that I have going on. Because it gets worse for every glass of alcohol that you drink, and you can see I'm really struggling to drink that last glass of wine there. But in the end, the completely empty glasses make a really nice touch, and I think add to the build in a way that was worth, you know, having to reset my character a few times to do it. So here's where I start using more workshop props to get things looking nice again. I add those flowers you saw earlier on top of the fridge, and I'll add a little plant to the hexagons in a bit. But this is also where I also decided that this place needed a bit of lighting, and so I figured the best way to do that was to have a lighting baton above it, or is it I think it's a lighting baton, I'm probably wrong on that. Future me here, it's a lighting baton. I was wrong and I'm an idiot. It's been forever since I took like stage theory and stuff like that for performance. But so yeah, I just created this rack for lights to hang off of, and I'll do 3 of them. Although we're not quite there yet, so we'll wait until we get there before we talk about that. So for now, you can see on this lighting baton, or baton, I don't even remember, you can see that we're making it based off those, the pipes that were holding up the hanging shelf over there. And so you can see it's like got that like brick that we use as the rusted metal, and it's got the same sort of like clamps that we're holding onto it. And then we quickly move into creating another piece of this marble and wood decoration along the wall to give it a consistent look. And then eventually later you'll see it, we add a back wall to it made out of bamboo, and that ends up bringing this whole build together and making it look a lot nicer than it did before. Alright, so this little piece of wood that I'm creating right here, right now, it gives me a lot of issues whenever I try to move it down, and I'm still not even sure why to this day. But this piece of wood right here was the most difficult piece of wood to manage in this entire project. Alright, so here is where we finally start hanging lights from the lighting baton. And so we'll have 3 different lights, one of the 3 colors we've got going on, the red, the blue, and the yellow. And it takes me a moment to figure out how to resize these lights properly, but once I get it going, I first make this one the yellow light, and so I'll copy this yellow from the base, and then I'll have to manually put in the, I guess it's the hex, is that the hexadecimal code? I'll have to put in the code for the color into the light system, because for whatever reason whenever you save a color to, whenever you save a color in this game, it only applies to saving that color towards like the first option or the second option, and it doesn't save for everything, which I think is weird, and the creators should probably change that. which again, if the creators are somehow watching this, thank you again. Your game is wonderful and I love it. But you can see these lights actually ended up looking really nice in these colors. I must have really lucked into like the winning combo of colors. Anyway, for now, I start twisting on some food dishes using workshop props just to give it a little bit more life. And of course, you know, I add a soda because what are you gonna do without your diet Dr. Kelp? And so then I added a mixing stand from Animal Crossing and a little garland along the roof just to add a little bit of variety. And it's about here where I realized that I need something on the back of the wall, and so I'll create a barrier for it, and then I'll make said wall. And though I go through a few different things for this wall, the bamboo we ended up on I think is probably the best choice. There were probably other options I could have gone with, but after seeing the bamboo, I thought it was just the proper choice, because it just looks the best. I mean, just look at that. I have to rescale it down, because for whatever reason it kept scaling back up, but whenever we get it down, it works. And unfortunately, it breaks the painting for some reason, and so I had to remake the border, and I decided to make it in white, since it clashes with the bamboo wall more and makes it pop out. Around here, I decided to add a sign, although in a moment I'm going to change the sign because it's not what I wanted. I wanted to have one of those Japanese hanging scrolls, but there wasn't a workshop item for it, and I stubbornly at first was like, I'm not going to make a hanging scroll, and then I painstakingly made a hanging scroll from canvas cubes and canvas cylinders, but unfortunately I lost most of that footage, so you're going to see in about 2 seconds this entire thing is done and we're working on something completely different. So yeah, that's just how it goes sometimes, I guess. The painting I ended up using for this hanging scroll is a painting of a golden pavilion, or sorry, a golden pagoda with a rainbow over it. That's used to be my phone screensaver, because I adored that painting. It was so good. I love it. Okay, so unfortunately, like I said, most of that footage for making that hanging scroll was lost, but you can kind of see it in the background on occasion, and you'll get a good view of it at the end. But for now, I moved on to try and create another of my favorite Animal Crossing decorations, and that is the water cooler, or the fruit-infused water cooler. Basically, it's just a small little item. It's a glass jar that has a spigot and on the top, and it's full of fruit, and it's one of my favorite decorations that I just wish I had in my actual Animal Crossing house, but I don't. Originally, I just tried to find one in the workshop, but there's so few Animal Crossing things on the workshop. It's literally just that blender, a rug, and I think the bulletin board, and that's it. So if somebody actually does have the fruit cooler model, and they can plug it into Starry Night, I will be eternally grateful for you, because it is a decoration piece that took me forever to build, and if I ever want to make another one, I probably won't, because this was a lot of effort for what is literally just a water dispenser that sits on the counter of a bar. I don't regret putting in all this amount of effort in order to make it, because I think it turned out really nice by the end, but I wouldn't do it again. So instead of putting water inside of it, because the water textures in this game are they're a little wacky, and they tend to move around too much for my liking, I set it inside of that piece of glass texture that I've been using this entire time. That makes it refract and looks a little bit weird and makes it look like it's in water. Although the bottle it's in at the moment isn't great, because the bottle prop is just not great for putting things inside of at this moment, at this size, I guess. So eventually I'll delete the bottle and I'll replace it with a just cylinder of glass, and it'll look a lot better. But for now, I'm just putting fruits inside of it. Weirdly, the strawberries in this game are very, very vibrant red, and I end up removing a few of them because they're just way too vibrant. But otherwise, the apples and the oranges in this game look really well, although in the original one, they're sliced up, and in this one, they're definitely not sliced up, because there's no way I was going to get canvas cylinders that I was going to texture to apple and orange slices. It probably would have looked better, but I didn't want to go through that effort either. you can see I'm making the nozzle to the fruit dispenser, or sorry, the water dispenser. And I start off by using two hexagons, I almost said hexagons, by using these two hexagons and then a few well, I could do a few cylinders. I use canvas cubes, cylinders, and canvas spheres in order to make the actual spigot itself, and then what's it called? The lever, I guess? It's not really a lever. The word for it escapes me. I guess it's the tap of the spigot. It's one of those. So yeah, I ended up making that all by hand, and I think this part ended up looking pretty nice. Although, on the bottle, it still looks a little strange because it's just kind of inserted into there, but I guess that's just how they do it in real spigots too, so I'm not really sure what I'm complaining about. A lot of work to make this fruit-infused water dispenser, but in the end, it ended up looking really nice. Although I'm sure nobody who is watching this or like sees this build from the outside will guess that this took me over like an hour and a half to make. So yeah, keep that in mind if you're making small little detailed builds like this. It takes time, and like I said earlier in the video, this video may be condensed down into less than an hour, but this alone took me more than an hour. So it's just always good to have like podcasts to listen to in the back, or political channels if that's what you're into. Just find something to listen to while you decorate, and you'll do fine. And so as you can see, I'm trying to put a lid on this bottle, but the bottle is way too big for this. And so you'll see in a moment I put a few cylinders around it, and then I'll end up just deleting this bottle because it's too big for its own good. I tried my best to cover up the top of this thing, but it looks so out of place. Yeah, I'm glad I resized it and did not use this bottle, because if I had been using this bottle, I would not be happy with this final product for the build. Inside for a little bit of decoration, I had I'm calling it brass, but you know, it could really be any shiny metal like this. I had a brass ring around it, and you can see I've removed the bottle now, and I'll add a glass tube around it. And now that the bottle's gone, I can also readjust the top and add something to the bottom. So it ends up looking a whole lot nicer without the bottle, but I guess the bottle was a good base to start with, and I think the real moral here is that the real water cooler is the bottle we made along the way. And you can see for the tube around the water, I changed the texture a few times to get a glass texture I like, and this scratched glass texture, while looking like it's like a little bit of an icy water cooler, it also has a nice reflective glass material, so I ended up choosing that one because me and my reflections just adore reflections. Call me Narcissus. And so finally, after about an hour and a half of building, I finished the water cooler and I can move on to decorating the little side bar over here that connects the hallway to the kitchen, and the other near the it's not an entrance, but also say it's more of an exit. But yeah, it's right next to the fridge, as you can see, and by this point the fridge is actually fully decorated. I just didn't show it for some reason. And there's the apparition plant. But yeah, so I decided to add a few little small details here and there just to create a more lived-in atmosphere, because that's the whole goal here. Even if there's no one here at the moment, I want it to feel lived in. And so this is actually a new item that I didn't even know was in the game. It's called Physical Media. And basically you get to put a link into it, and you get to choose a link for the cover art too. But whatever link you have inside of it, whenever you throw it at a TV, it will play that media. So right now it's hooked up to my very first video. Go check it out if you haven't. But in the final iteration, it's linked to a Abroad in Japan video, which is a channel I love to watch, and his videos are always just so good. To be more specific, it's his video on Himeji from his Journey Across Japan series, which if you haven't checked it out, is one of the best free series on YouTube. And it's basically just him bicycling across Japan from, I forgot where he started, but he goes from basically one end of Japan to the other just by bike, and it's an amazing journey to watch. And I'm sorry you can't watch it live anymore, but when it was happening live, it was such an experience to watch. Anyway, we moved on to decorating the hallway here, and by decorating I mean I placed carpet here, and I placed lighting, and I will decorate this hallway some other time. But I just wanted to have it here so that way it felt fully complete. And finally was this front section here, where I decided to continue a theme of things I've been doing throughout this build, which is setting up a museum display case. And so for future episodes, if you guys have suggestions, I will be more than happy to make display cases with your suggestions. And it can be literally anything, because like right here, I'm building a display case for Monokuma from the Danganronpa series. But I also have ones for the Holy Hand Grenade, the Emoji Movie, the Fushigi, and everybody's favorite Burning Team Captain from Team Fortress 2. So literally anything, as long as you think I could make it inside of Tower Unite, can be placed inside of these little display cases. You just have to be able to discuss them to make them. And I would love to start taking some other people's suggestions for these objects, because I'm kind of running out of ideas. I went ahead and decorated the back off camera, just so I could get this video out faster for you guys, but that brings us to the end, and I hope you guys enjoyed this build. I'm really proud with the outcome we have here, and as you can see, it's a very well decorated one, and if you guys want to see more of this, please like and subscribe, so that way I can continue to make this content for you. Please check out my Twitter, please check out my Patreon if you want to support me on there. But otherwise, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I hope that your weekend goes well. See ya.